This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Bruchim Haba. Thank you for having me tonight. We're ready within 30 days of Purim. We're Shloshim Yom Koydem Achag. And even though the inyan of Shloshim Yom Koydem Achag, it certainly applies for Pesach. Many Rishonim say it applies for Sukkot and Shavuos as well. Nevertheless, Tosfos in Masechet Megillah and Daf Dalet says it does not apply to Chanukah and Purim. Nevertheless, these Sfarim do teach us that there's a certain influence of the Yom Tov of Purim that does extend within 30 days. So let's speak a little bit about Megillas Esther and the story of Purim and what we could glean for it for the whole year in our everyday lives. So we know one of the most important principles of the Megillah is enunciated in the penultimate pasuk, in the second to last pasuk. And that is, the Megillah basically ends, V'chol ma'asei sakpayu gvurasai, V'chol parashas gedulas Mardechai. If you want to know all the chronicles and the historical context and all the information of the times, you got the wrong book. Haloheim kesuvim b'sefer divrei hayomim l'malchei Maldayu Paras. You got to look in the chronicles of Persia and Media, but don't look in this book for the history. This is not a history book. Every detail in the Megillah was recorded for one thing and one thing only, and that is to magnify the Nes and to appreciate the Hashgacha Pratis. So, in that context, I want to examine a detail that the Megillah makes a big deal about, and it would seemingly be quite trivial and insignificant. So in the very beginning of the Megillah, number 1 on your sheets, it talks about Esther. Vayehi oimein es Hadassah. He raised Hadassah. Who's Hadassah? He Esther bas Doidai. Esther, the daughter of his uncle. So Esther and Mordechai were, contrary to what people think that Mordechai was Esther's uncle, they were first cousins. Ki ein la avaim. She has no father and mother. And the question is, who cares? Who cares that she has no father and mother? Of what relevance is it that Esther has no father and mother? Does Mordechai have a father? I don't know. Does Mordechai have a mother? Doesn't say. Does Haman have a father? Does Haman have a mother? How about Achashverosh? Does Achashverosh have an uncle, an aunt, a third cousin? We don't give any details, not about Achashverosh, not about Haman. All of a sudden, when it comes to Esther, the Megillah makes mention of the fact she has no father and mother. Why does the Megillah have to tell this to us? Of what relevance is this? This is not a history book. This is not a book of trivial details. Why do I need to know that Esther has no father and mother? Furthermore, the pasuk continues, V'hanara yifas toyar v'toivas mareh, uvemois avia v'ima, and when her father and mother died, lekacha Mordechai lo levas, Mordechai married her. And the Gemara asks, why does the Megillah have to say that Mordechai married her when her father and mother died? If the beginning of the pasuk said she has no father and mother, obviously Mordechai married her when her father and mother died. Because if she has no father and mother, her father and mother didn't suddenly come back to life when Mordechai married her. So the second part of the pasuk is extra. The Gemara Megillah asks on Daf Yud Gimel, Ki ein la avaim uvemois avia v'ima lamali amar Rav Acha. Says the Gemara, the pasuk is telling me that Esther endured a very unique set of circumstances, and that is Ibarta Mesaviha. When her mother was pregnant, her father died. Yiladasa Mesa Ima. When her mother gave birth to her, her mother died. So the pasuk is saying not only did Esther not have a father and mother, she never had a father and mother. There's no one on planet Earth whoever was more an orphan than Esther. She never saw her father. Her father died after she was conceived, and her mother died after she was born. There's no one in history who was more a Yisoima than Esther. So not just she didn't have a father and mother, she never saw her father, she never saw her mother, which begs the question again, who cares? Of what relevance is this? Does this in any way contribute to the salvation, to the Yeshua, to the Hashgacha Pratis? Why do we need to know that Esther not only didn't have a father and mother, never saw her father, never saw her mother? Furthermore, the Medrash in Esther Rabbah, the Medrash in Eicha Rabbah says, not only did Esther not have a father and mother, not only did she never see her father, not only did she never see her mother, but the Rebbeinu Shem orchestrated specifically that the Goyel of Klal Yisrael can only come through someone who not only didn't have a father and mother, but never saw their father and mother. The Medrash in Esther Rabbah comments on the pasuk in Eicha. Yisoimim hayinu v'yenav. Sorry, I can't help it. The pasuk says, Yisoimim hayinu v'yenav. We are orphans, we have no father. Says the Medrash, Klal Yisroel, Hashem tells Klal Yisroel, you're complaining you have no father and mother. I swear, says the Rebbe, that your Redeemer will be someone who has no father and mother, and that is Esther. Comes the Rebbe Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, aside from writing more than 35 svarim, Kreisi Upresi, Urim V'tumim, Tfaras Yonasan. Virtually all the Rabbanim who were alive in his times were Talmidim of his. He was one of the greatest Marbitzei Torah who ever lived. He taught more than 20,000 Talmidim in the course of his being Rosh Hashiva. Asked Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in the Yaris Davash, number 5, V'yesh lahavin, lama dafka haya hagoyo ba'ofen zeh. Why was the redemption specifically in this fashion, that not only did Esther not have a father and mother, she never saw her father and mother? Let's ask another question. Trivia. Who remembers? I could tell in this room there's some experts, not only in Shas and Poskim, but in the whole Tanakh probably. Right? Mustama. How many times in Tanakh does it say what shevet someone's mother comes from? Once. Where? Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan Abirosh my Mordechai ben Yoir ben Shmi ben Kish Ish Yemini, and the Gemara Megillah asks, is he an Ish Yehudi from Shevet Yehuda, or is he an Ish Yemini from Shevet Binyamin? And for the Gemara, Amra Bishua ben Levi, Aviv mi Binyamin, the tatas from Binyamin, Imai mi Yehuda, his mother's from Shevet Yehuda. Ask Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, who cares? Who cares? You know, Ya Moed Feivel ben Sprinza. You know, you call it, who do we really care what shevet someone's mother comes from? All we need to know is the mother is Jewish. But what shevet someone's mother comes from is irrelevant. If the father's a Kayin, you're a Kayin. If father's a Levi, you're a Levi. If father's from Yehuda, you're from Yehuda. It's irrelevant what shevet the mother comes from. Why, when the Megillah is Meyaches Mordechai, is a Meyaches him by the mother? Next question. Question number 5. We have a tradition that in order to overcome Esav, you have to come from a specific line of lineage. We have a tradition, the Medrash says in number 9, Pinchas b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman Mesoirasi. We have a tradition. She'ein Esav noifel el biyad boneha shel Rachel. That Esav will only fall in the hands of the descendants of Rachel. It doesn't say only Yosef. We would think that Esav will only fall to Yosef. After all, it says V'haya Beis Yaakov Eish, Beis Yosef Lahava, Beis Esav Lakash. But no, this Medrash is saying that in order to overcome Esav, you need to come from Rachel. What was it about Rachel Imenu that coming from Rachel is a zechus, a skula, to overcome Esav? What is the connection between coming from Rachel and being able to overcome Esav? Then we move on in the Megillah. Now, if I were to ask you a question, is Purim a Yom Tif? No? Yes or no? Is Purim a Yom Tif? The answer is what? It's a machloikis. Who is it a machloikis between? Mordechai and Klal Yisrael. Mordechai tried to institute it as a Yom Tov. Simcha u'mishtev Yom Tov. And he was not misakein matanas l'avyonim. And Klal Yisrael said, no, Mordechai, we'll take matanas l'avyonim, we're not going to take a Yom Tov. It's the Gemara Megillah. That first it says, Simcha u'mishtev Yom Tov, ve'ilu matanas l'avyonim lo yikamar, and then the Klal Yisrael were not makabel as a Yom Tov. So we once spoke out here, in at least in Muncie, that why were Klal Yisrael not makabel Purim as a Yom Tov? Because if Purim would be a Yom Tov, what would you have to do when Purim is over? You would have to make Havdalah. And we never want to be Mavdil from Purim. There's one day a year we can't separate from. So we don't want to be Mavdil from Purim, so we weren't makabel as a Yom Tov. So, what is Purim? Look at number 10. Uvechol Medina, uvechol ir v'ir, mekayim asher dvar hamelech v'dasai magia, simcha v'sasayin laYehudim, mishteh v'yam tov. Now this is all in what Mordechai tried to do, which we were not makabel. V'rabim me'amei haaretz misyahadim. What does that mean? V'rabim me'amei haaretz misyahadim. Many goyim misyahed. They became gerim. There were many gerim that were nitoisif to Klal Yisrael. So not only is it mishteh, not only is it simcha, not only is it sasain, it's even gerim. Wow, that's the big cherry on top. The big Yeshua is we have gerim. Why do we want gerim? Why is that a good thing? That adds to the simcha. Doesn't the Gemara in Yevamah say, kasha gerim li'isokes hapachas? We don't encourage geros, we discourage gerim. We send them away. We say this is not a good idea. Keep Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and that's good enough. Why are we all of a sudden, you know what the cherry on top of the Yeshua Purim is? There were gerim. Well, how does that add anything? And finally, the big whopper, the big question is, let's say if you ever had the experience of giving a shiur, you know what the most demoralizing thing is for a Maggid shiur? So you're standing there, you're sitting there, and it's late at night, and you can't fall asleep while you're eating cholent. Clinically, studies have shown that in the process of maybe afterwards you could fall asleep, but you're trying to keep the guy up, and he falls asleep on you. It's like an arrow, it's very painful. But the good news is, the more things change, the more they stay the same. This is not a new phenomenon. Even Rabbi Akiva, when he would give shiur, some of the Talmidim bikesh l'hisnamnim. So you can imagine Rabbi Akiva tried to pull out of his arsenal the most interesting maramakim he could come up with. Right? So Rabbi Akiva saw a few Talmidim dozing off. He said, why was Esther Zoicha to rule over 127 Medinas in the merit of Sarah Imenu, who lived 127 righteous years? Everybody knows that. Yeah, it's a serious question. If you were tired, and the Rebbe pulled that out, if I was tired and the Rebbe pulled that out, I would be out cold. What exactly is so interesting about the fact? Wow, that's amazing. That's really riveting. That's one of the exciting things I ever heard. But just numbers alone, the guy is going to be out. 127. Saying, why was Esther Zoichet to rule over 120 in the merit of Sarah's? If that's the best thing you got, what's so interesting about that? Ask Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, how was this a technique to wake up his Talmidim? Okay, so we come to a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara in Soif Tainis, Daf Chav Hey. The Gemara tells us about Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. And Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was very poor. He was a real tzaddik, legitimate tzaddik. And he hardly ate. All he ate was kav charuvin me'erev Shabbos. And I don't even know how he was able to eat that kav charuvin. In fact, I don't know anybody who's able to eat charuvin. Try eating a carob. It's like eating the table, What exactly? That's all he ate the whole week? A carob? He ate the table every week, Anyway, so he was doing a good job with the tzaddik business, but his wife couldn't take it. So the Gemara says that his wife said to him, Amrale debisu ad emas nazel and atztar kulei high, number 13. How long do we have to suffer for? So he said, what should I do? So he said, what do you mean what should you do? Daven that the Rebbeinu Shem give you something. So he prayed, and out from Shamayim came the golden leg of the table. So great, they could sell it and they could buy stuff. But then they saw in a dream that all the tzaddikim in Olam Haba are eating on 3-legged tables, and they're eating on a 2-legged table. So they said, should we be the only tzaddikim who eat on a 2-legged table, everyone else eating on a 3-legged table? So he told her, so what should I do? She said, daven that they take back the leg. So a hand came down from Shemayim and took back the leg. Says the Gemara, Tana Gadol Hayones Achra and Yosem and Arisha. The second miracle is greater than the first miracle. Why? The Gemiri, we have a tradition. The Mace of Yasivi Mishkal Shakli. Heaven giveth, heaven does not taketh away. God gives, He doesn't take. Really? Asked Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in a different chelak of the Yaris Tavash. Really? Heaven gives, heaven doesn't take away? Never went to a levaya? The pasuk is Hashem Yonasan, Hashem lokach. God gives, God takes. So what does the Gemara mean? The second miracle is a greater miracle because we have a tradition, God gives, He doesn't take away. Furthermore, what does the Gemara mean? That all the tzaddikim are eating on a 3-legged table and they're eating on a 2-legged table. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of the legs of the table that other tzaddikim are eating on and they're only eating on a 2-legged table? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, a great life-changing principle. And that is, if you would ask most people, here you have a guy, the Rebbeinu Shalom made him, he's a Baal Kishroin. He's very bright. He's a masmid. He has a great life circumstance. And he utilizes it. And he learns properly. And he accomplishes in learning. And he becomes great in learning. And he davens properly, has a clear head. He doesn't have distractions in life. And he has resources to do Gemilas Chasadim. And this other fellow, he doesn't have such a good head. He doesn't have a strong yeshiva background. He has a hard time davening. He doesn't have resources to do chesed. He would love to learn. He wishes he could daven better. He wishes he could do more chesed and tzedakah. Who has a better situation? Who's going to get more reward? You say it's a no-brainer. The guy who learns, the guy who davens, the guy who does chesed. The other guy, he's not doing any of the above. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, it's a fatal mistake. Because there's a principle in the Gemara and Brachos. This is one of the most important principles in Judaism. In number 18, the pasuk says, "Az nidbaru ishal reyehu vayakshev Hashem vayishma vayikasev b'sefer hazikaron lefanav liyirei Hashem ulechoshvei shemai." There's a concept of lechoshvei shemai, those who think about doing mitzvahs. Says the Gemara, "Mayu lechoshvei shemai." Amar Rav Ashi, "Chishev adam lasos mitzvah." The person wants, yearns, longs to do mitzvahs. Venenas. And he has extenuating circumstances. He can't learn. He doesn't know how to. It's too difficult for him. He can't daven. His challenges are too difficult. He doesn't have resources to do tzedakah. But he wishes he could. He yearns to. He longs to. He wants to. Male olav hakasav ki'ilu asa. The Rebbeinu Shalom reckons it as if he did it. He did it. He wishes, here's a guy, he knows Kol HaTorah Kula. And here's another guy, he looks at the shelf, I wish I knew one blot of Gemara. I wish I knew Kol HaTorah Kula. I wish I davened like the biggest tzaddik in the generation. I wish I gave tzedakah like the biggest oisher. It's like he did. It's like he knows Shas. It's like he davens like a tzaddik. It's like he gives the most tzedakah. Now the question is, who's on a higher madrega? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, in a certain way, the person who doesn't do the mitzvah and wishes he could is on a much higher level than the person who does the mitzvah. Why? How could that be? Tell you why. Because the guy who's learning, at the end of the day, he's a basar v'dam, he's flesh and blood. You think he's learning with complete avas Hashem? You think he's learning totally lishma? You think he's learning with fulfilling every detail of the halacha, of the machshava, of all the dimensions of the mitzvah? No, there's for sure something lacking in his performance of the mitzvah. And if that's the case, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, anybody who ever performs a mitzvah is going to be lacking because at the end of the day he's limited by human shortcoming. Masha'inkein, as opposed to the person who is not doing the mitzvah, but wishes he could, and now the Rebbeinu Shalom is reckoning it as if he was Mekayim the mitzvah. What kind of mitzvah do you think the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to bestow to this person? The Rebbeinu Shalom is not going to give him a shvacha mitzvah, a low-level mitzvah, a B- mitzvah, a B+ mitzvah, even an aleph mitzvah. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to give him the mitzvahs that the Rebbeinu Shalom considers a mitzvah, which is a gem, a perfect mitzvah. In other words, the only way really to fulfill a perfect mitzvah is not to do the mitzvah, but want and wish and long and yearn to do the mitzvah, and the Rebbeinu Shalom bequeaths and gives you the mitzvah. That's how you get a perfect mitzvah. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, Mrs. Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was making a big mistake. Why do you think she wanted money? You think Mrs. Chanina ben Doisa wanted a new pair of shoes? Mrs. Chanina ben Doisa looks at her husband and he says, listen, you're a big tzaddik. You learn a lot of Torah, that's a feather in your cap. Can't take that away from you. You daven beautifully, can't take that away from you. But you can't give tzedakah because you have no money. So in Shamayim, when we're going to get upstairs, we're going to have two legs. We're going to have the Amud of Torah, we're going to have the Amud of Avodah, of Tefillah, but we're going to be missing the Amud of Chesed because you have no resources. So pray to the Rebbeinu Shalom that He give you money so you could give tzedakah. So Rebbeinu Shalom said, watch this. Here, you're a millionaire now. Now that you have money, La'achar me'ah ve'esrim shana, relative to the stature you would have been on, you're going to be missing the leg of tzedakah. You know why you're going to be missing tzedakah? Because you're going to give tzedakah. And if you could have not given it, you could have wanted to give it, that's actually a higher madrega than being mekayim the mitzvah. Because you're better off in a certain sense, longing and yearning and pining and wishing and hoping and being mevakesh, than doing it yourself. Because when you do it yourself, at the end of the day, you're a basar v'dam. So Hashem said, here, take the money, but you'll see it's to your detriment. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, so why was it a bigger mitzvah? Why was it a bigger miracle for the Rebbeinu Shalom to take it away? Because now if the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to take away the money, it's at the expense of the aniyim. Now the aniyim are going to lose out. So will the Rebbeinu Shalom take away money from Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa if it's going to hurt the poor? And for a tzaddik, what won't the Rebbeinu Shalom do? But it was a bigger miracle to take away the money than to give the money. I'll tell you a little story. One of the great all-time mechabrim in the history of Klal Yisrael, whose svarim, I don't think anyone ever wrote svarim which are more niskabel b'olam ha'yeshivos. Rabbi Aryeh HaKohen, the Shev Shmaitza, the Avnei Miluim, and the Ktsois HaChoshen. Three of the most accepted svarim in Klal Yisrael. Why was he zoicha to write these three svarim? In one of the editions of the Shev Shmaitza, in the Ravcha de Shmaitza, they bring a story. Now, Rabbi Aryeh HaKohen was so poor. It was so cold in his house, in his apartment, that he had to sleep with his inkwell under his arm so that the inkwell wouldn't freeze. And 3 times on Yom Kippur, he was so ill he had to eat. And in the zechus of the tsar that he had to eat on Yom Kippur, it is said that he was zoicha to write these 3 svarim. Now, I never understood this. Last I checked, there is no mitzvah to eat on Yom Kippur. I'm not aware of any mitzvah to eat on Yom Kippur. Could someone please tell me what is the zechus of eating on Yom Kippur? There's a mitzvah to eat Erev Yom Kippur. I don't think eating on Yom Kippur is a good thing. So I understand he had to do it. But of all the good things he ever did, it was in the zechus of the tsar that he had on eating Yom Kippur that he was zoicha to write the Yisroel. How does this make any sense? It's because everyone fasts on Yom Kippur, but what are we going to do? We're going to, if we don't fast, you're not going to get a shidduch for your kid. You have to fast on Yom Kippur. Even Rabbi Aryeh HaKohen, he's a basar v'dam. His fasting on Yom Kippur would be limited and mitigated by human shortcoming. But 3 times in his life, he wasn't able to fast. And he wished and he longed and he hoped. He said, Rebbeinu Shalom, please, next time, I wish I would be fasting today. The Rebbeinu Shalom reckoned that as the perfect mitzvah of Yinisem Esnaf Shoyseichem, and that zechus, he was zoicha to write 3 of the greatest svarim Klal Yisrael ever had. Says the Rebbe Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, when Haman came to Achashverosh and he petitioned to kill Klal Yisrael, Chas v'shalom, that was very frightening, because Haman comes bolstered by a very great mitzvah. He's a descendant of who? Esav. And we know that Esav, although he was a great Rasha, there was a mitzvah that he did that nobody came to his toenails. And that is the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em. The Rishonim write, Vayira Yaakov ma'oid vayetzar lai. What was Yaakov afraid of? The kibbud av va'em of Esav. The Yalkut Shimoni brings that Rav Shimon Gamliel says that I don't come to the toenails of Esav. Esav wears special begadim when he serves his father, and I'm not even on that madrega to do that. So if Haman is coming, bolstered by his chus of Esav, of kibbud av va'em, who could possibly counteract the zechus of Haman and Esav of kibbud av va'em? There's no yid who ever lived that was on the madrega and kibbud av va'em to counteract Esav. Says the Rebbe Rabbi Yonasan, kibbud av va'em is one of the hardest mitzvahs to be mekayim. The Gemara says in Kedushin Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ashrei mi shaloi chaman. Fortunate is someone who never saw their parents, because the simple pshat is it's a very difficult mitzvah to be mekayim, to honor them the way they want. Who knows how somebody else wants to really be honored? It's a very difficult mitzvah. Sometimes parents get older, it becomes very challenging. Chayodam adds that part of the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em is to imagine and envision and picture your parents as great people, like presidents, like Nesiim. What if they're not? It's a very hard mitzvah. But says Rabbi Yonasan, the secret of the Gemara, Ashrei mi shaloi chaman, fortunate is someone who never saw their parents. You know why? Because Esther never saw her father. Esther never saw her mother. And her whole life she said, Ribono shel olam, I wish I could be Mekayim in the midst of kibbud av va'em. I long to be Mekayim. If only I had parents. If only I had an opportunity to be Mekayim this mitzvah. So the Ribono shel olam looks down from Shamayim. Says, Ribono shel olam, you've activated the great principle of Masechta Brachos. Chishev lasos mitzvah. V'nenas v'lo yasa mala olav keilu asa. Esther, I reckon it, I consider it, I gift you kibbud av va'em, but not a human kibbud av va'em. I gift you a supernatural mitzvah of kibbud av va'em, a perfect kibbud av va'em, the one type of kibbud av va'em that could overcome even the kibbud av va'em of Haman and Esav. By the way, I saw a very similar thing in the Chassam Sofer in Parshas Vayishlach. Chassam Sofer says that Yaakov Avinu sends word to Esav, Im lavan garti va'echar arata. Im lavan garti. What does Rashi say? Taryag mitzvah shamarti. So Chassam Sofer says, Taryag mitzvah shamarti. Yaakov Avinu wasn't Mekayim kibbud av va'em for the last 22 years. He was away from his father. How could he say, Taryag mitzvah shamarti? Says the Chassam Sofer. For those of you who heard this shir, this is a chiddush, this is a new part. Says the Chassam Sofer, Yaakov Avinu didn't say he was mekayim et taryag mitzvahs kiyamti. Taryag mitzvahs shamarti miloshan va'aviv shamar es hadavar. He was mitzapeh. He yearned to be mekayim kibbud av va'em. He longed to be mekayim kibbud av va'em. He wished, he was mavakish. So Yaakov Avinu sends word to Esav, don't be such a hotshot that you think you have kibbud av va'em. Taryag mitzvah shamarti. I was longing to be mekayim it, and that is, in a way, is greater than your actual fulfillment. So it's interesting. It's zeh l'umazeh. Esav Haman comes with the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em, but Esther comes with an even greater mitzvah of kibbud av va'em because it's a kibbud av va'em that she wasn't mekayim. She hoped to be mekayim. You know, I like to speak out in the Megillah. It's zeh l'umazeh asa leikem. How many times is Haman mentioned in the Megillah? 54 Hamans in the Megillah, the Reikach says. 54 times Haman is mentioned in the Megillah. Keneged, the 54 letters in the Aseres B'nai Haman. Keneged, the 54 words in Bimei Mordechai ve'Esther b'Shushan Habira. Ki machai emche. I'm going to wipe out emche. Emche is Gematria 54. Machai emche, the 54 mentions of Haman. And how many times is Esther in the Megillah? 54. Zeh l'umazeh. One time Memuchan, one time Hadassah. 54 Hamans, how many Zereshes? 4 Zereshes. 58. Haman and Zeresh, 58. How many Mordechais? 58 Mordechais. How many Psukim in Megillas Esther? 166. Keneged, the 166 words about Amalek and Chamishei Chumshei Torah. 119 in Parshas Beshalach, 47 in Kiseitze. That's It's all the rekeach. Mamish neflois mitaraseinu. Everything is zeh keneged zeh. Every instance in the Megillah, the Rebbeinu Shem has to stack us against Haman. We have to come head on to Haman. Haman comes with kibbut avayim. We have to come with the greatest kibbut avayim, which is a kibbut avayim that never occurred. Kibbut avayim that was yearned and pined for. Now, there's one thing a little bit deficient in Esav's kibbut avayim. Esav, you think you're a big mechabed esavicha? How do you think your father felt? How do you think Yitzchak felt when you sent Eliphaz to kill Yaakov? Is that kibbut avayim? That's what we tell Esav. You groiser mechabed. But you sent Eliphaz to kill Yaakov. So Esav says, yeah? And you guys sold your brother Yosef. So take that. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says that if we try to impugn Esav's kibbut avayim, he turns back at us and says, you sold Yosef. That is why the only people who could overcome Esav are the Bnei Rachel, who didn't have a share in Mechiras Yosef. So that when we say to Esav that you try to kill Yaakov, Esav can't say back to us, and you try to sell Yosef. That's why Mordechai and Esther, the dynamic duo, they call them. Esther had a perfect kibbut avayim, and Mordechai came from the Bnei Rachel, so Esav can't say back to us that we were involved in the Mechiras Yosef. Now, the Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says there's one other zchus that Haman had. Haman's baba, Haman's an Amaleki. So who is his Elta baba? Timnah. Now Timnah has a big zchus. Timnah gave up everything to become a Geyores. She went to Yaakov Avinu. She wanted to marry Yaakov. Yaakov sent her packing. She went to the Avos. And ultimately she married into Amalek. So the zechus of Haman was from Timnah, that Timnah was willing to be Megayer. But we counteract that, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, that Mordechai's mother came from Shevet Yehuda. Yehuda were experts and embraced Gerim. Yehuda took Tamar. David and Shloimeh took various Gerim, Nama, Ha'amoinis, and other Gerim. So the expertise of Shevet Yehuda, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, was they also embraced Gerim. Be it as it may, says Rabbi Yonasan, the way the Rebbeinu Shalom set up the stack of cards is that Haman comes with the Zechus Kibbut Avayim from Esav. Esther comes with Kibbut Avayim from a Kibbut Avayim that she wasn't able to be Mekayim. Haman cannot tell us that we sold Yosef because Mordechai descended from the Bnei Rachel. Haman has the Zechus of Gerus. We also, because Mordechai came from Shevet Yehuda as well. But this is the Nakuda and this is the Yisai that we're trying to bring out. That often in life, a person may feel despondent and down. I wish my circumstances were such, I could have accomplished much more in Ruchnias. I could have learned much more. I could have davened much better. If only the Rebbeinu Shalom would have given me a different set of circumstance, I could have accomplished so much more in my life. But what we learn from here is that very often the Rebbeinu Shalom specifically mitigates a person's opportunity. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving us the option of activating a phenomenon called Chishev Lasos Mitzvah Venenas. And when you activate that, it's a much greater zechus. So the truth is, you're sitting at the Siyam Hashas, and here this Gadol Hadar is sitting, So who's better off? Someone who was able to become incredibly great, or somebody who did his best and wished he was? Says Rabbi Yonasan, it's better to wish you were than to be there. It's a bigger zechus. It's a bigger opportunity. It's a bigger merit. Now, if I were to ask this principle, Chishev Lasos Mitzvah Venenas, are you supposed to think about this? Are you supposed to be cognizant of this? Is this an important inyan? Rabbeinu Yoina teaches us. This is actually one of the most important mitzvahs, aseh d'oraisa in the Torah. Which mitzvah is this? It's the mitzvah of wanting ruchnias. It's the mitzvah of yearning for ruchnias. You say, really? Which mitzvah is that? Rabbeinu Yoina has a very interesting mitzvah in his list of mitzvahs. And we'll try to conclude with this. Rabbeinu Yoina, if you look in his Shari Avodah, number 27, Rabbeinu Yoina tells us, V'yachmoid v'yichsoif lahasig ba'avodah mashein yadai maseges. A person should always desire and yearn to achieve in his service of Hashem what he's not able to. You hear this? Not you should yearn for something that you're able to achieve. You should want what you can't achieve. 3 lines down. You should do the same for every midah. Yachmoiroisa, you should desire it. V'yisavela, you should yearn for it. V'yivcharba, you should choose it. And then Rabbeinu Yoina says, Ki ha-bechira mitzvah sasehi. There's a mitzvah aseh in the Torah to want ruchnias. Then you should go to the shelf and you should say, you see the Shas? I want to know the entire Shas with every Rashi, Toisus, Marsha, Maram Shif, Rashas, Rosh, Rif, Ran. Now it could be you could do it. Even if you can't, you should want to do it. If you see somebody doing a great thing, you should say, I wish I could do that. Because if you really wish, and the only reason you're not is because your circumstances don't allow you, take it to the bank. It's yours. You got it. You got it. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says, this in a way is the most important thing throughout our Avodas Hashem the whole day. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, even most mitzvahs today, we can't be Mekayim. Even tzitzis. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says, we don't have tchelas. He says, so what we don't have tchelas? He says, when you put on the tzitzis in the morning, you should be choymed, v'nichsaf, I desire, I yearn, I wish I could be mekayim tzitzis with tchelas. You'll be rewarded for wearing tzitzis with tchelas. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, you ever wonder, why do we daven musaf? What's the purpose of musaf? I'm sitting there. 3,300 years ago, we brought cows into the Bais HaMikdash, and we took a knife, and we cut off the head, and the blood went flying everywhere. I have to do that every Shabbos? Why? I need to remember every Shabbos that they chopped off cows' heads in the Bais HaMikdash? Why do I need to remember that every Shabbos? I remember from last week that I said that. Why do I need to discuss the slaughtering of animals? And 3,300 years ago, we slit open the cow's head and he said moo, and the blood went spritzing everywhere. That's great. It's very inspiring. Very inspiring. The purpose of davening musaf, says Yonasan Eibeshutz, is not to remember what happened. It's because if you cannot bring a carbon musaf, you're lucky. You could do better than bring a carbon musaf. You could want to bring a carbon musaf. Because the kohen who is makar the carbon musaf, he's only a basar v'dam, so his carbon musaf is going to be mitigated by human shortcoming. But you living in Forshey, you can't be mekayim a carbon musaf. But if you're mispalel and say Ribono Shel Olam, ein anachnu yicholim lalos v'ros v'shtas l'fanecha v'lasos chaveseinu, I wish I could. Then when you go up to Shemayim, the Ribono Shel Olam is going to give you credit for bringing a carbon musaf. And when you say the carbon tamid in the morning, the purpose is to activate the principle of chishev lasois mitzvah. And when you say karbanos every day, the purpose is to activate the principle of wanting to do a mitzvah. Says Rabbi Victor Miller, Zechatzak Levracha, in his commentary to the Siddur. The main function of davening is to activate, and I'll read it to you in English because that's the language that he wrote it in. They now have Rabbi Victor Miller in Hebrew, but it's a translation from the English, He gives a few examples. He says, you have the biggest doctor in the world. He's a frum doctor, and he heals. How many people already could he heal every day? 10 people, 20 people, 30 people? That's wonderful. But he's limited by the number of people he could heal. But if you pray Rifa'inu and you say, Ribono Shel Olam, I want to heal all the Chayei Yisroel. Now, You can't heal all the Chayil Yisrael. You don't have a medical degree, you don't have the right medicine, you don't have the capability of healing people, but you would like to. So you will be credited with healing the Chayil Yisrael. Let's say you're the biggest shadchan in the world. The biggest shadchan in the world. How many shidduchim does the biggest shadchan in the world make a year? I don't know, 100? I'm not sure. That's probably pretty good. I didn't make any shidduchim this year, but I wish I could. I'm a spal, Rebbeinu Shalom, I want to find the sheikh for everybody who's looking for their zivah. You will be accredited with being mezaveg anybody who needs a shidduch. A person, says Rav Miller, could come upstairs after 120 and Hashem said, you, Rabbi Yid, rebuilt Yerushalayim. How? From Chutz La'aretz? Because every day you are mispalel b'kavana Yerushalayim ircha barachim tashav. Says Rav Miller, the purpose of tefillah is to activate this great principle of chishev lasos mitzvah. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives us so many opportunities. So if we have circumstances in life that mitigate our opportunity, mitigate our ability to accomplish what we think we could, realize it's a gift in a way. Because when you can't actually accomplish something, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives Klal Yisrael matana, and the matana is Chishev lasos mitzvah v'nenas v'layasa ki'ilu asa. And ultimately, this was needed to save the lives of Klal Yisrael in the times of Purim. The Rebbeinu Shalom had to put into position not someone who did something great, someone who wished they could. Sometimes the biggest Moshiach Shel Yisrael is the one who is not able to be Mekayim the mitzvah. And it's a tremendous chizuk, and it's a great encouragement that to view mitigating circumstances not as something Rebbeinu Shalom is taking away from us, but sometimes something the Rebbeinu Shalom is gifting us. But we hope the Rebbeinu Shalom should bestow on us only great opportunities and simcha and nachas. But whatever situations we're in, we have the opportunity to activate Chishev lasos mitzvah, and may we always have Yeshuas v'nachamos, Abi Askal Tzedek. Thank you so much. If anybody wants, there's a new sefer available on Purim that's available for purchase. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.